It feels like we've been in the middle of a debate about monetization in video games for a very long time. Loot boxes, free-to-play, games as a service, they're all things that publishers have tried and some gamers just really don't like that stuff. Well, now a group of industry professionals have published a set of rules on how to ethically monetize your video games.
Project Horseshoe is a group of games industry professionals who've banded together to establish a set of rules about video game monetization. In a newly published report, Project Horseshoe say the games designers are increasingly having to incorporate revenue strategies in their games alongside gameplay mechanics. And they say there is some confusion about how to do this ethically. Project Horseshoe is a smallish conference of industry veterans, including people like Joel Gonzalez of Firaxis and Kristen Cox of ArenaNet. Horseshoe say games are an entertainment business, and the industry must constantly concern itself with convincing people that games are worth their time and money. The team said, quote, "Simply put, our business is dependent on not taking advantage of our customers. We rely on them for our continued survival, and abusing them is only shooting ourselves in the foot." The report says any monetization mechanics in a game should operate on good faith, because game designers are trained to exploit human behavior for player retention. But as the report says, games become increasingly reliant on monetization methods to remain profitable, and then game designers need to take the welfare of players into account when designing their monetization model.
Project Horseshoe say that an established set of ethical guidelines will prevent game designers from exploiting people, but will still keep a game profitable in the long run. Horseshoe's golden rules for ethical monetization are based in modern ethical principles like do unto others and do no harm, and from there they created their set of rules. The first is players should not regret purchasing. So players should never feel like they've been ripped off, missold something, or manipulated into buying something that they don't really want. The team believe eliminating buyer's remorse is a solid first step towards treating players ethically. So I guess there are avenues for this already, like Steam refunds, and a lesson that should be learned over on PlayStation, and as far as I'm aware, Xbox, because it's much harder to get a refund on those platforms. But Steam is, if you're not happy with the game after the first, or within the first 2 hours and within the first 14 days of purchase or whatever it is, you can refund it, no questions asked. That's great. That's a good first step. The second rule is don't lie to your players, and the report says designers should strive to create a sense of trust. This means not lying to players about purchases, not hiding information which would allow them to make an informed purchase, and no tricks to manipulate them into making a purchase. Project Horseshoe say the games industry has a history of broken promises, and developers must be vigilant and deliberate in their honesty.
A couple of examples of this in action, maybe like No Man's Sky, where Sean Murray was adamant that certain features were going to be in his game pre-release, but they didn't materialize, they weren't there. So deceiving players into buying your game is one. The other example is hiding relevant information that might make players decide whether to buy your game or not. And the example of this is Bethesda's policy on games reviews. Because Bethesda, for a while, they didn't release review copies of the games until day one. You kind of think, like, why are they trying to hide information about the game? Reviews on day one are awesome for the public, because if you know what the game is like and how well it plays, you can make an informed choice about making that purchase. There's no review copies on day one, then you're just buying it blindly, and that's, I think, why Bethesda got all that criticism. We should point out, however, that policy has changed now. It seems, although there's no official word, as I'm aware just yet. The third rule is don't change the player contract, which means developers and players should be in direct communication about their expectations. For example, implying a sequel will include all the features of the original game, then changing that without informing players is considered a bait and switch by Project Horseshoe. If developers plan on making substantial changes to a game, then they should also be transparent about the changes with their players, and the players should be transparent about their expectations.
Yeah, this is quite an obvious one for me. It's the graphical downgrades, I think. It's when a game looks like it's going to be a certain way and it just isn't. Ubisoft were probably one of the biggest offenders with this, with The Division and Watch Dogs, and both of them were kind of significant graphical downgrades. They didn't look anywhere near as good as what was first revealed at shows like E3 and things like that. That was quite a famous conversation. Another one is Aliens Colonial Marines, which is a very high profile case of this happening, where the game was just absolutely not what was shown off beforehand in terms of graphical fidelity and kind of gameplay and AI behavior and things like that. It just was not what the final product was. That's probably what that kind of rule is pointing at.
The fourth rule is don't set expectations that are not delivered on, which refers to things like bullshots or gameplay features which don't make it into the final game. According to the report, setting expectations by promising features which aren't included hurts the purchasing power of your game.
Don't overpromise, Peter Molyneux. That's what that line is. But even Peter Molyneux said, I better not overpromise anymore, that was quite bad. Sean Murray.
Yeah, he learned his lesson, didn't he? Shut up. I mean, again, No Man's Sky is another example. Promised too much and felt the consequences of that. The huge backlash from the community afterwards. And Sean Murray just went into like zero communication afterwards because he learned his lesson because everyone was... So, I mean, he felt the backlash of it. Again, just don't lie to people.
And the final golden rule is respect your players' investments, don't take hostages. Once a player is invested in a game, this gives things in-game some meaning and value, such as cosmetic items for their avatar. The report says that once players reach this level of investment, game designers have the ability to create things which players will want to buy. But it also means designers can hold those kind of investments hostage. Monetizing by locking players out of certain content will only breed resentment, and it may make the player reconsider whether your game is actually worth playing at all. A classic example of this is kind of showing off a piece of cosmetic clothing or something, like in your, like, I don't know, branding or promotional material. You're like, look how cool this jacket is. But if you actually want that jacket, you're going to have to drop about 10 grand and spend 7 years of your life opening loot boxes before you get a chance of getting one. That's the kind of thing that they're talking about there, because they know that players who play that kind of game a lot, they'll get to a point where I would really like that jacket, and that jacket suddenly has a lot of value attached to it because of that.
So these are the golden rules of monetization according to Project Horseshoe, and they even include some examples of how to implement these rules in different monetization models. Applying these rules to loot boxes, for example, would require designers to reveal the exact items that a player could receive and what the odds of getting these items are. Horseshoe say the randomness of loot boxes can add to the excitement of a purchase, but when the randomness is used to hide the true value of the loot box's content or confuse players, then an ethical line has been crossed. In closing, Project Horseshoe say ethical monetization is a topic which deserves enthusiastic debate. The development community and designers should take an active role in establishing ethical monetization to ensure continued prosperity of the industry. So this is a really important topic, I feel like. This is why we're so enthusiastic about bringing this topic to you, because it's something that is not discussed a lot, right? And this is business, right? For a lot of people, it's just business. People making games, they just want to make money, right? How business and ethics work together is really important in all sectors, and especially in gaming, because gaming is an industry where people spend a lot of time. It's a huge part of their lives for many, many people. So getting that right, how to monetize games and not piss people off or do it in an ethical way, it does deserve debate. And it is great that Project Horseshoe is a thing in my eyes, because these are the types of things, these pro-consumer things that we've been spouting for months and months on end. They're kind of crystallizing the rules now for everybody. So going forward as a games designer, if you follow these rules, then you're less likely to end up like a EA and be the scourge of the industry. And you won't do damage to the industry as well, because that's a big thing. You could totally put people off playing games entirely if you scam them out of your money. Nobody wants that.
If you look at the most popular companies out there, they already kind of follow these rules anyway. So these rules have just been formed and put together, and they're basically guidelines that some companies are already doing, and they are the most popular companies, and they're the ones that people love to talk about. The ones that people hate are breaking almost all of these rules. So there you go, 5 rules about monetizing your video games ethically. Let us know what you think about this down in the comments below. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and please do subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this every single day. There's another video right there which you can check out right now if you want, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. See you next time.